Well, happy Friday, Zak.
Hi, Renee. How are you this afternoon?
I'm good.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for joining us on a Friday afternoon. I hope I'm the only thing standing between you and the weekend.
Yep, just, looking forward to it and spending some time with my children. So it'll be good.
Good. Well, welcome. My name's Renee Hahn. I'm with William Ravis Real Estate, and this is a little bit of a turn off, if you will, an exit ramp from what I was using these StreamYards for, which is all about connecting people in Southwest Florida, and we're still doing that. But I thought we'd be selfish for a little while and steer conversations towards our world of real estate. And so I'm thrilled to have you here. You are officially my first guest under the real estate umbrella, and hopefully we'll have people near and far joining us and certainly watching us on instant replay. So I'm thrilled to have you. I have with us today Zak Sinberg, and Zak is an expert in the area of mortgages. And I'll say that in case he doesn't, because he's also modest. I a bit handpicked Zak for this first segment because I've had the opportunity and the pleasure with working with Zak, not just in a capacity on deals I work on, but Zak also did lending on my personal purchase back in October. So I have the opportunity to work with lots of different people, but when a real estate agent picks someone for their own private purposes, they must know what they're doing.
Well, we appreciate that.
Well, Zak, as a segue, then, what I'd like to do before we get into the topic of mortgages and how brokers fit into that, share with the audience a little bit about yourself and your business.
Well, Sinberg Capital Lending was established back in 2007 in Durango, Colorado, where I'm originally from. We started there, and once I had transitioned down to Florida with my family, then we opened up a faction of the business down here. So we represent both the Florida and Colorado markets.
And
we specialize in residential mortgages, of course, mostly conforming conventional, jumbo, FHA, VA are the loan programs that we work within. And we just try and do an awesome job for our clients and, build our business, mostly on referral base and, working and building relationships with, top tier real estate agents like yourself.
Well, great. And as the name would indicate, this is a family-owned business.
Yep. My brother and I are partners and both principals in the business. And, ostensibly, he handles the Colorado market because that's where he lives. And I handle the Florida market because I am down here most of the year as well. And then it gives us the luxury of going back and forth between two great places.
I was just going to say that, Zak, because if nobody gets anything else, that should be an indication of IQ. Because picking two places like Colorado and Southwest Florida as anchors, if you will, for your business and your lifestyle is pretty darn intelligent.
Yes, I wouldn't have it any other way, to be perfectly honest. It's, more than enough, but, great markets to be in. Durango, like Naples, is one of those communities where people want to live, and the demand for good properties is always on the high side of things.
Well, and I'd love to, actually, I know I'm asking you some things we were going to talk about, but if you'd be a good sport with me, I have two questions. Number one, is it snowing there yet?
We have had some snow in the high country, but, the days get real nice and then, drops into those fall cool winters, weather temperatures in the evening, and then it gets cold at night. So.
Great. And question number two, Zak, is their market blowing up like Southwest Florida right now too? I heard it is.
It is. Southwest Colorado, like here, they are buying homes anywhere from $200,000 to $20 million, sight unseen at this, people that are wanting to exit out of the cities, and find that they can either work remotely or work remotely part-time and buying, nicer homes in more, desirable areas, I guess. And So yeah, I mean, Durango and the market in Durango and in the surrounding Four Corners area is always strong. And then, up in the Front Range, up in Denver, once again, just a mass, influx of people coming in.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Well, I wish continued success in both
Well,
marketplaces.
thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Zach, what I wanted to do, recognizing that particularly as this post on Facebook, I have a lot of agent followers, but I also have a lot of consumers who would potentially be looking for mortgages in their own private buying. And, we all like to think we're experts at some level of things, but the reality is I work in real estate and there's a lot I don't know about mortgages. So what I wanted to do is maybe start with the layman's terms around what are some of the mortgage options that are available for people. And as you talk through each of them, what are some of the things, if you were going to do your own personal mortgage, knowing what you know, that you would be weighing out with each of those options as a consideration?
I think first and foremost is, building that relationship with the client and understanding what their scenario is, and then that way we can gather all of the documentation at once and then really assess what product works best for their scenario. Everybody's, financial scenario is a little unique to themselves. So it doesn't always have a, one glove fits scenario. So once we've had that opportunity to meet with either your clients or your referrals, that we can have a real good idea of how to approach, the entire transaction. It helps the real estate agents write their contracts and then, sets up the expectations of the timing to, get it start to finish from once you do have an executed contract, knowing that, you can close within a reasonable period of time. Working with a broker as opposed to maybe a retail bank, we can certainly speed things up and move at a much different pace than, maybe some buyers and real estate agents are accustomed to.
Yeah, and I can actually personally attest to that because we had, just for the audience, it wasn't that long ago, less than a month ago, I think, I had a cash buyer on a property in Naples. And at a time when everybody was talking about, closings taking longer, appraisers being booked, all of the things that can slow that process down, being the pipeline being full of refinancing. Excuse me, we had a buyer that we flipped from cash to lending, and I think we closed in about three weeks, give or take. Do you remember, Zach?
Yeah, absolutely. Typically when things are even as busy as they have been during all of this, we're getting our loans underwritten in about 2 days. Yesterday, I had one underwritten the same day, so I submitted it at 8:30 in the morning, and by about 3:30 in the afternoon, I already had the loan conditionally approved and already had been working towards getting all of the extra documents that need to, get a loan to close. If, nowadays, sometimes we get appraisal waivers. So if that's the case, that certainly reduces the time it takes a transaction to get done. I'd like to say that, we can always guarantee a 30-day closing, is pretty fair, and then, on or before. So I think that's really important for the real estate agents to know that they've got somebody that, basically once you've done the home inspections, that, will handle all of the communication between yourself, the title company, the lender, and the communication is very transparent and comes freely as things go along. We've got great technology where we can keep you guys updated minute to minute of what's happening in the loan process as well.
Great. Things I want to touch on, it's probably going to seem very remedial for you, but let's talk about, you were talking about you can get a close, the conditional close, if you will. I found that even highly educated buyers who have bought and sold many homes, as they are borrowing, they don't understand some of those major thresholds and they get them confused. So could you give us the description of some of the milestones and what each of those means? So when you get a conditional close, what does that mean versus clear to close at the end? Do you mind sharing a little bit about those steps in the process?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, of course, it starts off with you guys, the realtors, looking for a pre-approval process. So that's when, I interview the client, get the minimum amount of financial documents in order to ensure that we can make sure that they're going to be able to close on this loan. So what we like to do is get it all up front or as much as possible so that it is, very comprehensive, that when that you're submitting your offers, that, this person can, follow through on the transaction. So that's the first step. And then once we do that, hopefully we are able to get all of the documentation that we need. And we try and keep it really streamlined for the buyer as well, so that their document gathering isn't as arduous as it may have been in the past. So then the next step is, once we do that, we've got a platform where we send out all of our loan documents electronically. Everything's e-signed, real similar to your guys' documents. And then once they receive them and e-sign them, then we can submit the loan right to underwriting. Typically, like I said, our underwrites are taking anywhere from a day to 3 days to get underwritten. And that's when the lender will analyze everything that we've gotten in. We try and submit as complete a loan package as possible right from the initial upload. That, it makes it so that the conditions that come back might be the title work, the homeowner's insurance, if there's any homeowners association dues or anything like that, that's where we start gathering all of that information. And then once we've satisfied all of the conditions, then we get what's called the clear to close, meaning that all of the underwriting processes are done, and then we're just waiting for the actual day of settlement, and then the buyers sign. Our loans have instant funding, meaning that once the seller and the buyer both sign, that the title company can disperse funds immediately. So the realtors would then, be walking out of the door with a done, settled transaction.
Yep. Well, and let me ask this. I know this is a very general question, so I expect a general answer, but
Sure.
when you think about from the point of either pre-qualification or pre-approval to then a conditional close to a clear to close, what do you see some of the fallout rates being through that process?
For us, it's very little. I mean, I see it more happen if for some reason the real estate itself doesn't work out for the buyer. They are in their inspection period and something, develops that, doesn't work for them, or that, the sellers are unwilling to, do the remediation work, things like that. I see them falling out. But, once we've kind of had the initial pre-approval process, we know whether the transaction's really going to work. I mean, we've run credit, we've, looked at assets and employment and income. So, I mean, once we've determined that, we usually have a very high success rate that, if the buyer follows through on the transaction, that it closes.
That's great. And Zach, part of why I wanted to ask that question, I want to point out that that's not necessarily true with every lender. Obviously I work on both the listing and the selling side. So I've been on both ends of that. And there are times when a pre-approval letter doesn't end up meaning a whole lot if the lender has not done a good enough job with the upfront due diligence. And so I point that out as you've got prospective sellers and buyers out there listening in to say, one pre-approval letter isn't necessarily the same as every pre-approval letter, because we're relying in part on the process and the requirements that those lenders had to be able to give that letter out. And, I've had some pre-approval letters that failed early on, and many that, were good indicators of what to expect with loans being able to go all the way through. So thank you.
Sure. I mean, when I work for myself like you do, so I want to, do the homework up front and make sure that before I put a lot of effort into it and, string it through 2 and 3 weeks worth of work, that I want to make sure it works. And we try and make sure it works from the beginning.
Great. I wanted to touch on my first question when we talked about type of mortgage options. I'll just share a little vulnerability on my part. When I first got into real estate, I didn't have a good appreciation for the difference between conventional, VA, FHA, and I'm talking about when I'm counseling my sellers on how strong an offer is and what some of the considerations are with those different loan types, I've learned a lot moving forward in my real estate career. But if you're a seller and you're looking at offers that are either FHA, VA, conventional, different things, what are some of the things that, if you were in that seller position, knowing what you know as an expert, that are considerations when evaluating what what those lending options look like to be on the receiving end of that?
Well, I think that if, for a qualified buyer, I mean, there's different loan programs that would work for them in all instances. So, I don't know if there's any necessarily pitfalls, if you will, but, for some people, a VA option is a great option for a veteran. They get the ability to take care of, the veterans, and they can get into homes with zero money down. It puts a lot of people into homes. FHA for people that, maybe don't have the huge down payment money, where they can, maybe finance a little bit more of it with coming in with lower down payment at 3.5%, as opposed to a minimum down payment of 5% on a conforming conventional loan. I mean, as far as a seller is concerned, I think that they want to make sure that they've got a strong, buyer that, that hopefully that the lender that's doing their work is, working on their behalf to get them to closing, just like the seller wants to get to. Of course, conforming conventional for a qualified buyer is probably the easiest loan programs to go through. They're automated, underwritten through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, so that, that kind of defines the way the loan is going to go.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And Zak, what I wanted to talk about now, because there's obviously different lender options. There's big banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo. You've got credit unions that are in the mix of lending money. You've got brokerages like yourself. You're a broker. So talk to us a little bit about what that means when people work with you, and some of the considerations and how that actually may provide benefit.
Sure, absolutely. First and foremost, I think going with a broker, we have a better array of products that we can take a lender or a borrower to. Not everybody does everything well all the time. So, there's different lenders that work really well in the FHA sector or the VA loans. There's, banks that are really good at jumbos. There's banks that are really good at condominiums. So, all different, scenarios. So we have the ability to take them to those lenders, and we've got a great portfolio that we've worked with for, over a decade now, that, we can make sure that our loans get to closing. Our customer service with the lenders, we've got great relationships there. Our loans get underwritten quickly. We get our conditions cleared up quickly, and we have a direct access to talk to the underwriters on a daily basis on all of our scenarios. So I think that's one. That, when you walk into, say, a big bank like Wells Fargo or Chase or any of them, you're looking at, when you walk into their office, that person doesn't have to be licensed. They fall within the auspice of the bank itself. So they may or may not, they may have been a teller 3 days ago, and all of a sudden they're now the mortgage person. I don't know. They've got one product to sell where, you walk in and they've got a Wells Fargo loan, and that's pretty much where you're going to lie or where you're going to end up. And that may be great for somebody, and, there's not great for somebody else.
Well, and one of the things I want to touch on, because there's two things that I get asked about when I give options to people I work with and help with introductions, and then they ultimately pick who they work with. But one of the things I get asked about when I bring up brokers, I get two questions. One, is that going to cost me more, since they're, how do they get paid if then the lender gets paid under? So I'd love your reaction to that. By the way, I get asked the same questions with insurance brokers. It's just, people are always trying to understand if something's costing them more. So talk to that.
In most scenarios, we try and quote everything at a par rate, meaning no origination or points you may have heard. Because our business is streamlined, it's just myself and my brother. We do all of our own work. We try and, give those savings back to the client, where we're not charging any fees, so that, that person goes and tells 3 people, that person, we build our business on referral basis on that way. Yeah. Sometimes buyers need a little assistance with their closing costs, so we can slightly increase the interest rate and get them back a lender credit towards those closing costs.
Yeah, so that's good. I want to make sure people know, even though Zak and Sinberg Lending would work on your behalf to find the best lending program across a wide array of options, that's not a service that's costing you more than if you went to other lending options. So I think that's really important. And Zak, the other one I get asked is, okay, does a broker then mean I'm going to talk to 15 different people in my process because Zak's just there as the introduction and then I go somewhere else? And I'd like you to talk to that too.
Nope. Every time you call that number going across the banner, you get me. There's no switchboards. There's, like I said, our business is myself and my brother, and we've got one other individual that works with us, but we do all of our own processing. So every time you call me, you will get me on the phone, or at least a voicemail and a return call, within a very reasonable period of time. One of the benefits with working with us is that we are in 2 different time zones, so we can really spread a day out pretty far. So things get started really early in the state of, Florida, and then work into the evenings in Colorado when, after business is already shut down here. So we can get, turn an 8-hour workday into about a 14-hour day pretty quick.
Yeah, well, thank you. I obviously do things I've experienced myself, and I want to make sure others have the opportunity to know that. And that is true. I talked to Zak on day one of the process, and as a real estate agent who stays very involved in the process to make sure everything, everybody's talking to everyone and title is coordinated with mortgage and insurance, I see it from start to end. And Zak was the same person I talked to at the very end when we got the clear to close and things were ready to go. So that is very, very true. He's not just giving you lip service. That is truly a customer experience. And one of the things, Zak, that I certainly appreciate about working with you. Let me ask this. We've got a few minutes left in this segment, and I want to give you the floor to talk about a little bit, what you're seeing in the marketplace. Obviously, it's been a great year in terms of rates. There's lots of views, although it seems somewhat consistent that we may be enjoying these for a while, but give a little bit of a market update from your vantage point, and share with folks about what you're seeing.
Well, to echo what you said, Renee, I mean, the real estate market is just insanely busy right now. Good properties do not last long, so people need to, have everything in a row ready to go. I think those pre-approvals really help the real estate agents so that when that property does come available, that their buyer can feel confident that they can write an offer and close on that transaction quickly. I think that, that's the end goal for everybody, is to get the transaction going, get it done, and then execute it in a seamless, timely fashion. So, when we all work together in that synergy, that's the way that the experience becomes pleasurable. We get a lot of people that are transitioning down to Southwest Florida. They don't know anybody. So I think it's really incumbent upon the professionals that have their boots on the ground here in the Naples area that all work together to make that so that experience is really good for the buyer.
Fantastic. And I wanted to ask you, Zak, now that you've become an expert in this mortgage space, what does Zak, the mortgage expert, wish he knew back when you were pre-mortgage days and buying homes? What would you have told your younger self?
Wow, that's a good question. I would have kept buying smaller properties and kind of cleaning them up, and I enjoy doing that type of stuff. And then I would have bought a lot more properties in Southwest Colorado.
Yeah, I remember talking to people even here in Naples, because Naples history in certain segments isn't really that long. And, I have friends that were teachers back in the day who tell me what they paid for property close to the Gulf. And a few of them that sold it since then and just kick themselves every day for not having that early pioneer to gobble up some of this property.
I mean, just think, I heard that lots originally in Port Royal were $250,000.
I know. I'm always a day late and a dollar short, I tell you.
I think you're doing great, Renee. Kudos to all your success as well. I mean, you've when you came onto the scene doing real estate in Southwest Florida, you really, put in the time and the effort and, made a big splash.
Well, thank you, Zach. One of the things I enjoy in real estate, whether it's, in the again, insurance, mortgage, building, all of those things. One of the things I love about working in this industry is you work with entrepreneurs. All of us that are serving the different segments of a real estate industry are all self-employed. We all, we work for ourselves, and we take great pride in our businesses and providing a service that's hopefully differentiated for people. So I just love the opportunity to work with so many talented and brilliant people in their spaces, because it's pretty amazing. There are very few industries that I can point to that have a similar composition as this industry that we all support.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's different schedules, different hours. We work weekends. So it's everybody pulls together, and it works. It works well.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Well, Zach, as we sit here on the cusp of what we hope is a great season, although candidly, I'm seeing less of the big extremes between the season, because I haven't gotten much time off in the last 2 summers, which was unprecedented in Naples history, where you got to catch your breath in the summer. Hopefully we're gearing up for a great season here as we enjoy some of our seasonal visitors and homeowners coming back down to enjoy a little bit of vitamin D down here.
Absolutely, and it's great to see the demographic getting younger and younger. So, there's a lot of great opportunity out there for people, and there's, Southwest Florida and Naples, area is growing, and the projections are also fantastic. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, real quick before we wrap up, one of the things you just said sparked a thought in me, and I don't know that it's enough data points to declare it a new trend, but you were talking about the shifting demographics. And certainly, again, on the buying and selling side, one of the things I'm seeing is I'm starting to see more loans. Now, part of that is cash buyers who say, you know what, I have cash to buy it, but why wouldn't I borrow it when I'm making more in my investments than it would cost me to loan? But there's also a part of it that is this shifting demographics of people who are, still in the throes of their career and may not have the liquidity, the assets on hand to buy things cash outright. So I think more and more sellers are going to have to get used to seeing more loans being a bigger part of the buying pool than certainly Naples, which has been such a dominant cash market, has seen in the past. And with that, I'm also seeing a more, home sale contingency arrangements. So I think as we buckle down and look at some of this, as you talked about, this growing diversity of residents in our area, I think we're going to see some of that shift, and certainly you're in the right space to facilitate that.
Absolutely. We have doctors, teachers, real estate agents. There is a huge economy here in Southwest Florida, and it is drawing a lot of people here that will be working and buying homes and being part of a community.
Absolutely. Zach, I so appreciate you being with us. I wanted to point out down below, Zak's information has been going across the tickler. So if somebody wants to get a hold of Zak and talk about the different lending options, even if you're just in the beginning stages of thinking about that, I encourage you to do that. We are enjoying a low interest rate right now on loans. So I encourage even those traditional cash buyers, it may be a good time to borrow at least a part of it. My husband and I opted not to pay cash in its entirety, but instead took out a modest loan to take advantage of the low rates. And by the way, be able to help the credit scores over time, because as we all know, paying for things in cash doesn't necessarily help you build your credit score. So I encourage you to reach out to Zak and explore some of those options for yourself. And I appreciate you joining us, Zak. Any parting words as we close for the day?
Nope. I'd be glad to help you, your clients, and your other real estate professionals. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm really approachable, and we'll help you out.
Great. So Zak Sinberg, Sinberg Capital Lending, thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us. And
thanks for having me, Renee.
Beautiful weekend I hope we're all going to have.
Absolutely. You too. Thank you so much, Renee. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.